Hi, Jim Dowdalls. We're going to talk about skeletons, working skeletons into our drawings. We're going to be doing that for a week to almost 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half or so. Learning the drawing to draw from the inside out, learning to draw the figure from the inside out. The very inside of the figure, the structure of the figure, the foundation is the skeleton. So we're going to start there. I'm going to demonstrate working that skeleton into your gesture drawings and then as a contour line drawing. So I've got a side view of the model, and I've done a gesture drawing already. I blocked it in. I'm still using my measurement points for the ankle, the top of the head, and the middle, which is the greater trochanter. So let's start there, and I've got my skeleton right here, and you should have a copy of a skeleton next to you while you're drawing this, either printed out from a book or right on your desktop. Okay, so we're drawing the skeleton, and this is the greater trochanter, and that leads out to the femur. Okay, so it's all gestural at first. Let's just do a gesture drawing of that skeleton first. Here's a patella, which is the kneecap. Since we're looking at the outside, there's two bones at the bottom. There's a smaller, thinner bone. It's actually a long bone. We're talking about the fibula and then the tibia. So they kind of overlap. The fibula is in front. Okay, so let's come back up. Let's start with the pelvic bones. Very important landmarks. So we've got pelvic crest. Gesture it, gesture it. This is going to be tough at the beginning. So we've got sacrum here. It's the midline of the back of the pelvic bones. Don't need a lot of detail, but okay, spine goes right into the sacrum, right into the pelvic bones. So I would suggest not drawing all the individual vertebrae. If you do anything at all, you might want to just contour, cross contour the direction that it goes. You can do something like that. You don't need all the little bones, all the little facets on the back. We don't need that. Okay. So let's come over here and do the scapula. Scapula is going to be real thin on this side. You'll be barely able to see it. Barry looks like he's leaning over a little bit, so this scapula is going to come down a little bit farther, probably to about there. The scapula is right there, so you can see the shape of it. The spine of the scapula comes right into the acromion process. Very important bony landmark. These are the kind of things that I want you to try and get in your drawing. Okay. So now we're up at the arm. We're going to draw the humerus. The ball, the head of the humerus right here, comes straight down to the elbow joint. We've got a very foreshortened arm here, so we're not going to worry too much about trying to draw the bones of the upper arm. We'll get more of that later. But the olecranon process would be right here of the ulna, and that's really a key bony landmark that creates the elbow right there. We'll come back to that later. A little more emphasis on my pelvic crest. Okay, come back in, head of the femur, a little stronger, a little more contour line now. I know where it's supposed to be. Now I can just accent it a little bit stronger. A little bit heavier at the back. Let's come back up here and get what we haven't done. So rib cage would be very important. Corner of the rib cage coming up. Just like I suggest that you don't do individual vertebrae on spinal cord, I would not do individual ribs. If you want to indicate a little bit of contour, that's okay, but don't get bogged down because we don't draw ribs, individual ribs, usually. We draw margins of the rib cage. You could bring the vertebrae all the way up to the top, right to the atlas, the top. The skeleton includes the skull. The skull is part of the skeleton too. Zygomatic. The nose is actually, nasal bone is just right there, and the rest of the nose is cartilage, so we won't draw that. Okay. A little bit more contour of the body around it. So at this point, if most of the skeleton is blocked in, then just go ahead and accent the body around it. Don't be tempted to heavily outline. This is your opportunity to work with weighted line. Okay, let's do another one. So before I start on the skeleton, this is a front view now. You should be able to see easily for balance. I started off with the head and the neck, first of all, marking it off. Ankles, top of the head, and the greater trochanter, the midline. I'm also looking for angles here. This is a very strong contrapposto pose. So Barry's got a pretty strong angles across his shoulders going down this way. So that means if it's a contrapposto pose, he's going to be going the opposite direction for the hips, just to balance himself out. And it sort of like evens out towards the center here. So I'm probably going to have my rib cage on about the same level. Okay? So let's start anywhere, but this is a good place to start. So that's the manubrium of the sternum is right here. The sternum is this sort of looks like a necktie that holds the rib cage together, at least the top ribs together. We could go down from there and work our rib cage right in from there. Okay, and remember we're not drawing individual ribs. All right, so coming back up to the manubrium of the sternum, clavicles, collarbones. You can gesture it in lightly first, so gesture it in before you contour it, and then contour it. Now, a very important area right here at the edge of the clavicle and the acromion process of the scapula come together, right there. And if you feel it on your shoulder, that's that bony protuberance that comes towards the right by the deltoid muscle there, okay? All right, so let's continue on down. Pelvic crest, okay? Fairly easy to see on the model. It's right about here. If you're unsure where to go angle-wise, then follow the angle that we already have. So it's going down this way. So your other pelvic crest would be down there. Let's go with the greater trochanter. There's the greater trochanter because it's the widest point of the hip, okay? So it's all logical. You know, you go from one to the other. It's a side view. Well, I'm sorry, it's a front view, so we're seeing the side of the greater trochanter. It's going to fit right into the pelvic bones right here, the ilium. But let's go ahead and continue it on down because it comes right to the center, biggest bone in the body, all the way down to the patella, kneecap. Now it's actually going to be a little straighter than that, so it'd be a good idea just to gesture it in and then to draw it in. So we know the other one is over here, and because he's pushing his hip that way, we're going to see an indentation right there. Okay, so let's do a gesture this time. So there's a slight angle to this leg. Okay. Patella, and then contour it. Okay. Contour the leg around it a little bit if you want to. All right. So now we know where everything's going, pretty much. This would be our pubic bone right here. So that's where the two iliums come together. And we're seeing through the model, so lightly if you want to indicate where that spine is going. It's being pulled way over here. Okay, I did a little bit more work on the pelvic bones. They're tricky. They're very complicated. So let's come back up here and talk about the arm bones, the humerus first, and maybe a little bit of the front of the scapula, not the back of the scapula, but the front, right where that humerus would fit into the socket right there, called the glenoid fossa. So we're going to come down. Let's do a gesture drawing of that humerus. And foreshortened view, but it's okay. So we're going to draw the ulna first, smaller at the tip, bigger at the end. Comes behind. The humerus. The radius will be on this side, two bones, radius and ulna. Radius is always thumb sides. That's why I knew that this would be the ulna, because it's little finger, okay? If you have the time, you can spend some time on the fingers, the hand. Those are bones. I'm just going to contour a little bit more. There's the corner right there. Refine that a little bit. Okay, come over on this side too. Got a little bit of the corner of the rib cage. You can do the same thing up here. First vertebrae comes across here and here. We didn't draw the complete spine all the way through, but that's going to come over here. So get a little bit of contour. And you're not going to see everything of everything, but what you can see, go ahead and draw. So there's my humerus. Okay. Can't do this without looking at a skeleton while you're doing it. Let's go down to the legs. So the tibia is the bigger bone of the two, the tibia and the fibula. Lower leg goes right down to the lateral malleolus, which is what? It's a bony landmark. It's your ankle. And you're going to see a little bit of just the top of the fibula, maybe about that much. Okay, coming over on this side, we're going to wrap it up. Tibia on the inside, and the bigger bone of the two, right down to the lateral malleolus on that side. Fibula, head of the fibula, all the way down. Okay?